Yo, what's good everybody, it's Sketch and welcome back to the channel. And on today's episode we're taking a look at the arcade vertical shooter Varth, Operation Thunderstorm, developed and published by Capcom in 1992. This is one of those cases again where I wonder how this game isn't talked about more considering how good it is. It even has some interesting cameos throughout the game's 30 stages, but before we do all that, let's take a look at the story. A disaster on planet Varth's Colony Delta 7 has caused its supercomputer mainframe to become possessed by the entity only known as the Duo, a temporal spatial consciousness which is now out for blood after deeming its human inhabitants as threats. The supercomputer running the planet has now turned all defenses against the human inhabitants, wiping out 80% of its population. With the remaining colonists almost fully relying on the supercomputer, they lose their ability to fight except for 2 pilots beyond the Duo's control and are ready to missile barrage anything that stands in their way. Gameplay wise, you've got a vertical 2D shoot 'em up in the vein of 1942 and the 19XX series, which it draws from heavily in aesthetic, though it isn't part of the canon storyline. You'll fly through the game's 30 stages with the main goal of being not to get hit, since this is a one hit and you're going down scenario. You have a variety of power-ups from the spread shot, laser, and a Vulcan cannon, along with homing and cruise missiles and a napalm strike. You've also got a mega crush bomb that has variations depending on which weapon you have equipped, which are all equally devastating. The gameplay also, in true arcade shoot 'em up fashion, is hard as nails. The enemy will stop at nothing to see your mission end in defeat, but your pods will aid you on your journey to the final encounter. Your pods double as your missile launcher and active shields, which can alternate between a front set position or smart mode, which orbits your craft and deflects enemy fire. Enemy formations start out fairly challenging from the rip, so learning how to effectively use your gear is paramount to survival. This is also a game where you start out with 3 stocks per continue, and if you get shot down, you spawn right back where you left off. Though if you lose all your stocks, you'll have to start the stage from the beginning, and after passing stage 23 where it becomes a boss rush, and every continue will spawn you into a bonus stage where you can rack up items, points, and extra bombs. However, on stages 29 and 30, you'll have to do both levels on 1 credit, which is the hardest part of the game, with the amount of enemies and the 2 giant bosses, which has a total of 3 phases. This part can be pretty rough until you figure out the patterns, but the game sends you in fairly well equipped weaponry wise for most any occasion. Graphics wise, Varth runs on the CP system, which is the same board the first 3 iterations of Street Fighter 2 ran on, so it's got some power to work with. Sprites and environments are well detailed and have some solid animations. The art style is similar to 1942 series, here especially with the appearances of the planes and some of the enemy designs. It veers off and kind of tosses in more futuristic tech and structures throughout the levels, so it mixes up things fairly well. Boss and enemy designs overall have a similar vibe to Batsugun in the 19XX games, while your aircrafts are slightly more grounded in reality as far as how they look. You'll see the usual suspects like biplanes, trains, tanks, and naval destroyers, but you'll also see progressively more futuristic mechanical creations, and on the latter end, mixtures of the lot, which also look pretty sick. Bosses are often huge in this game, taking up half and at times 2/3 of the screen, and it also looks pretty sick. The bosses you'll encounter will have a lot of moving parts, especially animation wise when pieces fall away from destruction, so there's been some nice attention to detail. Environments are also varied with most locales you would expect, with the exception of space in this case. Level designs are all over the place, and a lot of them truly stand out with the detail and the radiant colors. The stage inside the volcano is pretty sick with the lava animations, and the attention to detail here is one of the best parts about how this game looks and the hardware it's running on. Being that it's using the CP system board, there's a few nods to other Capcom titles sprinkled throughout the stages, like the POW symbol from Vulgus, the sidearms Hyperdyne, and even Ryu from Street Fighter rolling through the stage and doing a Shoryuken. Sound wise, it's off the chain, and the soundtrack bangs with some serious belters pretty much the whole way through. It makes sense considering the composer from Street Fighter 2, Yoko Shimomura, was part of the project alongside Masaki Izutani. There's some crispy voice synth here when picking up items, and the sound effects slap with crunchy explosions and gunfire sounds. It's got some good sound effects that feel like they'd almost be right out of a 90s anime scene as far as the tones, and as a total package, it's beyond solid. Overall, Varth Operation Thunderstorm is an awesome vertical shoot 'em up game that's astoundingly underrated. I first heard of this game through Callus way back in the day, and then played this again on Capcom's Classic Collection Volume 2, which has been a great one to revisit. It's got a difficulty curve in that middle section and the final 2 stages, but overall is fairly balanced as far as challenge. And also it's a fun one to run through with 2 players just to watch the on-screen chaos unfold with explosions, dual mega crush, and laser lightning storms just going everywhere. Varth Operation Thunderstorm gets an 8.5 out of 10 and comes highly recommended for shoot 'em up fans and arcade game fans. This one is a bit of a long play with 30 levels, but if high octane action is what you're after, this one certainly delivers. You can find this in several other Capcom arcade games on the Capcom Classics Collection Volume 2 for the PlayStation 2 and and original Xbox. And I thank you again for checking out this video. If you find these videos helpful, that's awesome. I'm glad you can use it as a resource. Check back often. We'll have more reviews and commentaries coming up in the near future. But until then, stay safe out there. Take it easy. I'll see you on the next one.